White Fox is Marvel Rivals' newest strategist and the newest character added to the roster comes Season 7 on March 20th. And in today's video, I'm going to be going over everything you need to know about this character so you can have a slight edge against your opponents and you can flame the person insta-locking that they don't know what they're doing. And if they don't know what they're doing, make sure to send them my way so they can check out this video. But that's enough about that, let's dive straight in. Oh yeah, one quick thing. While you're at it, make sure to hit that like button. Of course, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and come and check out my Twitch where I try to stream each and every single day, whether it's a whole bunch of different games, so might as well stop by. But anyways, back to the show. Now let's go ahead and first talk about her primary attack. So White Fox's left click, or right trigger, is way more unique than it looks. It bounces off terrain, and it homes onto allies and enemies, and it can chain between targets. Kind of similar to Dagger, but it does bounce through a teammate to an enemy, which is pretty cool. Basically, what you're going to be wanting to do is bounce it off the ground or walls and let it redirect towards nearby targets. On enemies, it deals damage, and on allies, it heals. Pretty self-explanatory. And honestly, the best part is that every hit charges your spirit energy, which is the core of her entire kit. You want to think of it like this. Your primary equals your fuel system. Now, next up is her teleport and or shift ability. Now, this ability is insanely flexible. You can teleport through walls, which is rather cool. You can reposition across the map, and when you land on an ally, it both heals them and grants them a shield. And just like in the trailer, you can block a Magneto ultimate, which is pretty cool. Now, this makes it useful for escaping dives, saving teammates instantly, and repositioning into fights. It's basically your panic button and clutch tool all into one. Now moving on, we come to her right click, which is Spectral Flux. Now we get into one of her most impactful abilities in the entire part of her kit and game. This ability consumes spirit energy, Tails, and works differently depending on your target. Now on enemies, it passes through multiple targets, taunts them briefly, and forces them to move toward you. Then on allies, it grants short invulnerability, applies healing, which is insanely huge. That short duration of invulnerability can honestly make or break a ton of fights with this character. Now, basically, with this ability, or with this kit, you can save teammates from burst damage, interrupt enemy positioning, or force enemies into bad fights. Now, this ability alone has fight-winning potential, and is definitely something that should not be overlooked in any way, shape, or form. Then we move on to her Fox form or Awakening ability. Now, this is where she honestly becomes insane. Now, her Fox form is her core playmaking tool. You activate it using your Spirit Tails, so 1 tail equals 7 seconds of this Fox form, 2 tails equals 8, 3 tails equals 9. And while in Fox form, your primary becomes AoE healing, splash healing around allies, and constant sustain in fights. Now, that's not just it. While in Fox form, you also gain 2 abilities, which is like a flip or an engage. So you leap over an enemy, apply slow, and successfully landing this gives you, well, the second ability, which is a knockback, where you push the enemies towards your team. And your right click in the Fox form, you have a knock-up effect, and it launches enemies upwards. So you can really mess around and tamper with the enemies as a strategist, which is pretty cool. Now, here's a combo I'm already starting to see with this character. So essentially, it's you transform, you dash over to an enemy to slow them, knock them up, dash again, and then push them into your team. This is insane for picks, but you have to keep in mind you are a strategist, so it might be a little risky going for this type of play. You're basically turning yourself into a support, a disruptor, and an engager all at the same exact time. Honestly, it kind of reminds me of kind of a Bridget from Overwatch back when she got first released, which could be a little bit scary, but that's just some hindsight or foresight, one might say. Now, something I quickly forgot to mention, which is honestly a pretty important thing, and that is the Fox form kind of mechanics. Now, there's 2 things you need to understand, which is tail management. Your tails convert into duration. If you let it fully run out, you lose all your energy. So if you cancel early, you keep some of your tails, meaning better players will manage the form duration and not just spam it. Understanding when and when not to swap out the form is essentially crucial. Because again, if you go back to where I talked about the different tails or souls, it gives you or grants you different amount of time each time. If that kind of made sense, I'm not too sure. Now, the second important Fox form mechanic that you want to keep in mind is the double healing effect. So while in Fox form, you get splash healing on attacks and a healing aura around you. So this makes you insanely strong in team fights. So it is a good idea to really just talk about and look at all of these abilities. Now let's go ahead and talk about the ultimate, which is probably the biggest talking point of entire kit of White Fox. Now in her ultimate, White Fox turns into a nine-tailed fox. So what does it do? It creates a large AoE healing zone and it lets you heal teammates directly. It grants them CC immunity, lifesteal effects, but there is a catch. You yourself cannot be healed during this, which is pretty nice. So how do you survive? You must hit enemies to actually sustain yourself. So what's the correct way about going around and using her ultimate? Well, you don't want to just pop it instantly. Instead, you want to wait for your tank to engage, and then you let the fight get extremely messy and sloppy. Then you want to activate it. While in ult, you want to hold left click to keep bouncing and keep punching. And you want to spam right click heal on teammates whenever you can. You are basically a mobile healing engine, but only if you stay super aggressive. So if you pair this with a Gambit ult or any other type of momentum ultimate, will do an extremely well together. I don't know why I said that last sentence so weird, but basically, with White Fox Ultimate, you're using it as a momentum ultimate. Want to pair it with other momentum style ultimates as well. Think about Star-Lord, Winter Soldier, and these characters that have a prolonging effect that super get a ton of benefits from having something like invulnerability or anything of the sort. Now, I do just want to quickly talk a little bit about the playstyle with this character. So, from my own opinion and time playing this character, White Fox's ideal playstyle looks kind of something like this. You want to play safe early, farm up your spirit energy, and then you want to look for openings. From there, you want to transform and engage. And of course, you want to disrupt and isolate targets, whether there's straggling supports, you have the characters that are not the best at dealing with dive situations. Those are the characters you're looking to get engaged on. Then you want to sustain your team at mid-fight. She thrives in chaotic fights, dive-heavy comps, and close-range engagements. It seems like we're really going into, I guess, a dive meta, I would assume, because now you really, truly have a strategist that can go and dive in with the rest of her team, which is pretty cool. Now, for my quick final thoughts, I think White Fox is not necessarily a easy character, but if you put in the time, she becomes one of the most impactful, flexible, and playmaking heavy supports in the game that I've recently seen. Although you could argue with Gambit and so on, but I feel like she has a rather unique hit to the rest of the cast or other healers, which is pretty cool, and definitely the game needs something like this. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Now, if you enjoyed this type of breakdown, drop a like. It honestly does help a ton. And if you want the advanced guide with combos, positioning, and other types of tips and tricks, make sure you subscribe because we'll be working on that in the future. And of course, I hope you have a great and safe day. I'll catch you in the next one.